Hello YouTube, right now I'm on a holiday on a beautiful island, therefore I've asked some smaller lore channels to fill in for me during this 2-week period. There will be videos of me, but also videos made by them. So I hope you enjoy one of those videos that is made by one of my favorite channels that I actually watch. I hope you will enjoy it.
Hello YouTube, American Imperial Knowledge here, and a big thank you to my home slice from another continent, Zorkanov, for giving me an opportunity to share with you guys my passion, Kwama egg farming. Now, Kwama eggs may seem pretty nasty at first, but in all reality, it's not that bad. To start, all you gotta do is get into some endless Kwama mine and steal their queen's queen making juice. Then, you throw it on your own Kwama, and boom! Instant Kwama mine. Wait a minute. This isn't supposed to be a video on Kwama eggs and Kwama egg mining. What was I thinking? Of course, the Elder Scrolls lore community doesn't care about some minute detail about a critical component of Dunmerry culture that, if it didn't exist, would result in not only the fall of various communities, but also the socio-political climate of all of Morrowind. No, they think about the bigger stuff that adds more to the story, stuff like the lusty Argonian maid. Now think, Kuyo, think, damn it! What sort of crazy fanfic writings would make them want to watch your content? Oh, what a grand and intoxicating innocence. How could I have been so naive? There is no escape. Michael Kirkbride has always been the key, and the lock is LandFall. Roll that intro, my Argonian slave. We have a lot of work to do. Now, I admit, that intro was a bit over the top. But nevertheless, I'm going to be talking about a topic that, just like its writer, is utterly outrageous in every way. The topic is, of course, the concept of landfall, a disastrous event that takes place in non-canonical 5th era Nirn. As such, I'd like to first state that just like the possibility of orcs being Myr, this is not true in any way, shape, or form, unless specifically confirmed by Bethesda in a game or in canonical writings. This also means that this entire video is more or less going to be me talking about some 46-year-old man's fanfic about a made-up universe. And if you want to get a knowledge base before you head into the rest of the video, go click that link in the top right hand corner. It'll bring you to a video about the entirety of Coda over on our channel. So without further ado, let's get right into the news, lore. The origin of Landfall begins during 3rd era Tamriel. Specifically, it takes place during the latter days of the Tiber Wars, which was the formal name given to the many campaigns the Tiber Septim had started in order to take over Tamriel. In the story, however, Numidium, also known as the Brass God, as he was but a replica of Kukulkan, ended up being caught up in a time warp, one that behaved in a way similar to the one atop the throne of the world. Except this time, it trapped a lumbering machination inside a permanent time loop, making so that the siege of Alinor, which had actually only taken about an hour, becoming more like 6 eras for Numidium, with the Brass God fighting the Dominion forces from some point in the Myrthic era all the way to the end of the late 5th era. This strange turn of events allowed for a multitude of resulting events to happen and not happen. The first of which was the aversion of destruction that would have come from Durin Arctis by Numidium. The second was the eventual return of Numidium to the mortal plane, and as such, the resulting continuation of its prime directive, the destruction of all Myr races. At this point in time, a strange bug-like winged prophet would appear, one that would foretell the arrival of Numidium and the eventual destruction of Nirn. This prophet would first appear in the scorching wastes of Hammerfell, traveling across the continent of Tamriel to reach its destination of Morrowind, hoping that it would be able to save the last bastion of elves in time. This was not to be the case, and just like the bug, the prophet was crushed by Numidium's big old brass god foot. With the death of the prophet of Landfall, the world of Tamriel would be thrown into disarray, as Numidium did not pick who it destroyed, and was but a cold, heartless machine. This is not to say, however, that there was not resistance. In fact, the resistance against Numidium was beyond anything the mortal realm had ever seen. Entire armies would lay siege on the Brass God, hoping in vain that they would be able to destroy it, and subsequently save Nirn in the process. Now this is where I'd like to say is when Michael Kirkbride started to take the LSD in his writing process, and as a result, this entire story goes from something pretty typical of the Elder Scrolls to a literal space opera. So, buckle up your Silt Strider shell belts and take a good old sip of that Sujama, as this is about to get just a bit crazy. With the constant battles that the remaining Aldmeri Dominion was waging on the Brass God, Numidium finally decided to reap the world of the High Elf Menace once and for all, using a power that would become known as Ancestrocythe on the whole of the Altmer species. What this power did was not only wipe the beings out of existence at the time that it was used, but also wipe out any beings that had existed or would come to exist within a given criteria of race. What this ultimately ended up meaning for the Altmer was that it would be as if they had never existed in the first place. Similar to how failure in achieving Chim wipes out a being from existence, the Ancestrocythe did the same thing, but with much more disturbing consequences. And what happens when a species had never existed in the first place? Well, it would mean that the things that they did had never occurred in the first place, which is exactly what began to happen in Nirn. It began to change in a way that reflected the non-existence of the Altmer, with landscapes, magics, and even certain people changing to reflect the destruction of the Altmer. At long last, the great mages of House Telvanni and Marwyn came to a temporary solution. They would use their knowledge to flee Nirn and instead escape to the Moon Master, biding their time there, hoping to find a way to defeat the Brass God. It would be here that the Telvanni, alongside the help of the other races of Tamriel, would create a ship, one so grand and powerful that would be able to transport the remaining population of Tamriel the Master. This ship would come to be known as Wonderware, and would be the Ark of Hope that would save the people of Tamriel. This hope would not last long though, as its construction would take a great many years, and by the time that it was to take the last of the Mer people from Nirn, Numidium attacked, nearly tearing the refugee-filled ship from the sky. It was then that the fabled hero of old would return. His name had been lost to history, but in past ages he was Nerevar, and he was not alone. For this time, he was at the helm of the only being powerful enough to destroy Numidium, the original Dwemer god, Akulakan. Numidium and the Akulakan wielding Nerevarine would fight for what seemed like ages, with each coming closer and closer to the brink of destruction. But in the back of his head, Nerevarine knew it was not meant to be. That this attack of his was just a way to delay the inevitable. And as such, the Nerevarine would not be able to defeat Numidium, holding it off only long enough for the Wonderware to escape the atmosphere of Nirn. But once Numidium had defeated the Brass God, it began to lay waste to the rest of Nirn, and after its mission was complete, it journeyed one last time to the only place where anything was left alive, Massr. Though the Dunmer were ready this time, and from them would arise a hero of power greater than any that had come before him. A hero who would go by the name of Jubal Lun Sul. But this hero's power did not lie in his strength nor his knowledge, but in his words. And it would be with his words that this hero would defeat Numidium, tearing it apart with his own truth, thereby rendering the Brass God's truth inevitable. And with that, the tale of the Elder Scrolls would begin to come to its end, as Jubal and the infamous false god Vivek would go on to create those that would realize the prophecy that had been tried all these years. The prophecy that had predicted the birth of a new Amarith, and before it, the birth of the race of new men. The prophecy that ultimately would come to create the new world, and come to call the events that had transpired LandFall. With that, I think it 110% accurate to assume that the Dunmer are the most superior race in the Elder Scrolls universe. Not only did they beat Numidium with their arguments, but they also created men, using nothing but Vivek's Muatra and a spaceship. So there you have it, the cold, hard truth. The video was never about telling you non-Dunmer Enwas about LandFall, but simply proving that the Dunmer are the superior race, and always have been the superior race. Now, back to my egg farming. Kuyo out. But seriously, this story is what MK had been planning to be the conclusion of the Elder Scrolls series. And to be fair, it's miles, Kilometers for all my Slav Enwas out there. More interesting than anything that has been written to date. So please, talk about this in the comments. And if you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe to my channel, HBProductions. Over at HBProductions, which is made up of me, Kuyo, and my brother HB, we talk a whole lot about theoretical lore, as well as where it gets its influences from, and the ultimate consequences that it has had over time on the series as a whole. Also, we release lots of Elder Scrolls related memes to fill in the production cycle gaps each week. And in general, make videos on any Bethesda game that has interesting lore in it, including normal lore from the Elder Scrolls games. So please, go give us a look. And a big thanks to Zorkanov for letting us make this video on his channel. Also, if you thought this style of video was awfully similar to Zorkanov's, then you would be correct. As this video, besides just being a blatant advertisement for our channel, was also an homage to Zorkanov, of whom you will soon be seeing a musically oriented remix of. Anyway, here's the ending meme. Enjoy!
Please join me in inviting President Barack Obama and Kehinde Wiley to unveil the portrait. It's going. Woo!
Got me a bitch from Akabish, she's a blockhead. You need to cast that motherfucker. Ever bitch, you overweight. You niggas be some blockhead haters. All you do is hate, and I'm a dangerous and I don't hear what you niggas say.